Okay. Okay, so I propose to start then.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
We will have another difficult day with the alpha. So it's rebooting at the time of the conference.
Yes.
Let's hope it won't be too disturbing. So today we're going to speak about the user preference plugin.
Mm-hmm.
I have prepared a few slides on it. You can't see my sharing yet. Hold on. Yeah, okay. So the user preference plugin is quite a new plugin. It's one of the latest plugin, I mean, and is it is dedicated to all the greeting management. Where is it? User preference. Yeah, that's it. So I came quite lately into the OpenTouch solution. I would say that it's in OpenTouch solution since OT 1.3, perhaps, something like that, 1.2 or 1.3. Before that, it was managed either by the IMS or only by my messaging application. So they decided to make a specific plugin just to manage all the greetings. So the greetings can be of approximately five different types. The most common one is what we call the standard. So the name can be different depending where you are. If you are at CMS level, you will see some names that perhaps will not correspond to the one present in the REST API. So the standard can point to two different greetings, in fact. One, which is the phone number. It's the greeting that is played when you haven't recorded any name, because name recording is the first action that is requested when you log to your voicemail, when you access to your voicemail. So you will be requested normally to register your name. In that case, this standard greeting is more specifically a voice name greeting. Other greeting is the personal and the associated personal for internal. That's the one you can choose. You can program record a personal greeting. The personal for internal is played when the call is inside the system. So in fact, the two greetings works in conjunction. Other greeting are alternative 1 and 2. This can be selected at administration side, whether or not the user wants to support these two greetings. So they could be not visible for the end user if they are not been activated. And the last one, which is a very special greeting, it's the extended absence. It's very special because it does not work as the other greeting. It's more or less a way to override the default greeting. So if you activate the extended absence, it is just a checkbox in the web administration tool, or 8770, and it overrides the current greeting. And if you take it off, you come back to the previous situation. We will see that in details a bit further on. Not much to say. So the user preference, you can make several operations in that plugin, like getting all the greetings. Each greeting is characterized by some attributes, which is does it have an URL? Has it been recorded? Is it recordable? Because in one case, the standard is not recordable if you have some option set. You can record, of course, a greeting. That's what is proposed in the API. We will see the dedicated API. We can have a look to the REST API dedicated to that. We can save a wave. This is quite a recent development I made just because mobile phones like OTC smartphones, Android smartphones want to record using the native recorder on the phone and then send the URL as a greeting. We can, of course, activate a greeting. We will see that when we activate a greeting, the return of the operation is a list of activated greeting. So you can have two greetings activated at the same time. For example, personal and personal for internal. You can, of course, delete a greeting content. You never delete a greeting, you just delete the content. Okay? The greeting still exists. Let's say the structure of the greeting still exists. It's the content that will be deleted. In such case, the attribute recorded will be set to false. And we can also delete all the wave contents. In that case, the default greeting will switch back to standard, or more precisely, phone number. Okay. The different places where we can play with greeting is, of course, inside the plugin, user preference. This is accessible through the REST API, but it is also accessible by my messaging. If we see my profile more precisely, if I go to web admin on, not a web admin, I can go directly on my platform.
User profile, yeah?
Pardon?
User profile.
User profile, yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's my profile. It's called my profile. That's where if I log as A2, you see the page here. It is my profile. If I'm correct, I can activate the greeting there. Okay. It detects that. So I have no other greeting recorded. So these greetings are not allowed. Other greeting activation are not allowed since. So it's a very minimum functionality of greeting. It's just activating the greeting. So from my profile, you cannot record. That's an exception use of the greeting because this operation does not go to the user preference plugin. It goes directly into the DTA CMS, in fact. So we will see that I made an exception for that. Some functionality are not supported for that. And which other user interface can play with the greeting? From the IP touch, I have listed one development in the documentation folder. Hold on. Work. I sent the sharing link to you a few days ago. Hold on, greeting in my messaging. Is that it? Delete. That's not exactly what I was looking for. That's the same. Messaging feature already, I think. in that document, which lists all the product requirement also of the messaging, there's a chapter at the end, I think. That lists some enhancement in all messaging aspects, and there's one chapter. Yeah, that's it. So there's one chapter precisely here listing. Hold on. No, this is not the password. This is here. Sorry. Okay, voicemail greeting. So it's a way of present. There's been a development mainly in 2013 for adding greeting management on IP Touch. So that's where most of the development of the plugin has been done, in fact, because the IP Touch is then accessing to our API, in fact, the old SOAP API, but then it goes to the plugin, to the user preference plugin. So you can see that you can manage all the greetings there on IP Touch. You can record, you can select, and you can delete and do all common actions. Okay. It's not. It has not been developed on VHE IC Touch. Okay. So that's all the operation. Recently, there's been quite. Well, I've been involved in the first phase development of the plugin. Well, in fact, on Chameleon side, all the API adaptation to access to the plugin. So when we took the components, I was quite confident to take some feature enhancement that was requested. We had a long time request from some clients saying that why is that plugin not generating any events? So when you activate a greeting, for example, it is interesting to have the event saying that it has been activated, that it has been deleted, that it has been recorded. So I added quite recently the events, the 3 events, in fact, recorded, activated, and deleted inside the user preference. There's only one case where it's not working. It is when you go back to my profile and you activate a greeting through my messaging. If you go there and you activate a greeting there, you will not receive any event since this action does not go through the plugin for generating the event. So it's a restriction. It is listed in the API documentation.
Patrick, sorry.
Yes?
Do you mean it's described in REST API documentation?
Yes, in REST API documentation.
Thank you.
Yeah. If I take the documentation, hold on. Hold on, I will open the documentation. I take my Eclipse. I should have one generated. I should have one generated documentation. Let's take the draft version. If I go in the documentation, I should find in messaging. Hold on, where is it? Inside the greeting. Hold on, where is it? I'm just trying to find out where I'll put that greetings. Where is it? It's not there. Huh? Staging. I can't see it for the moment. I will have a look. Did I forgot to put that? It's on the activation. Activate a given greeting. Okay, so I will check it. Sorry for that. So I continue on the change being made, events being added. So that's the 3 events. There's been also one bug fix requested for checking the max greeting recording, because these are parameters that can be found on the web admin. I think it's in the voicemail profile of the user. And the check was not good, so I fixed a CR. And we discovered quite recently there was a bug in extended absence greeting management. Extended absence is very specific, and it's a bit of a nightmare because it does not behave the same way as the other. So the plugin says that it is activated each time you have checked the box of extended absence, which is not true because the wave is not recorded, can be not recorded. So there's still a bit of work perhaps to do on this. There are still a bit of work, development enhancement requested by OTCPC middleware team. I don't know if you know these people. Jan Grotet, as a software architect.
Yes, of course we know him.
Yeah. And Frédéric Mabilo. So we had a few mail exchange concerning the evolution he wanted to see on the greeting management. So I suppose they plan to make a specific user interface on OTCPC just for the greeting management. If we have a look, how can I open that? Hold on. From online, I can't open. Hold on, I will find it inside my mailbox. Messaging. So I will translate to you after this session. I will translate in English just the big line of this email. So he's been requesting a few things on the greeting. Hold on. Okay. So there's some inconsistencies in the plugin. For example, when I said when you activate a greeting, the return of this operation is a list of activated greetings. At the moment, it just returned one greeting. So we have to deal with the case of personal and personal for internal. If you activate personal and there are waves for both of them, we should return a list of greeting containing personal and personal for internal. So this is one of the requests. Another request is we have to deal with the case also if personal activation is requested, but there's no way, for example, for personal for internal. So in that case, we just return personal. Jan has seen some bugs in the API where I did not filter the correct name of the greeting. So I should not allow other things like as a standard. I should not allow voice name and things like that. So there's some filtering that can be done on that plugin. If you start this development of this fix soon, I can help you to make some changes on the API. I can make some proposal of changes that you can commit after.
Okay.
It's not difficult. It's not a very difficult subject. So just a few adaptations. What are other things requested? That's more or less the API, the user interface that will look like. So you will have another tab, greetings, where you can configure, given the name here. Configure is uploading a WAV file, in fact. Okay, and just selecting it. Okay. As you can see in the screen, there's none. You cannot select any of them because I think none are recorded. So it's only the voice, the phone number. In fact, they call it name in that case. So we have a few exchange concerning we are agree, yes, why not? Which events in case of greeting activation. There's another request concerning we should not accept activation of plugins that are not recorded. I think it's not the case for the moment. So you can try to activate a greeting that is not recorded and you won't have any errors on the API. So Jan requested us to be more consistent and to return a kind something like forbidden or something else. I will translate all that in English for you if you're interested. That's the exchange we had. This is what I try to insert into my PowerPoint, but I think the online, I will send the email to you. Concerning the greetings, there's also a few tools to manage them, which are not using the REST API. If you go to the web admin, you should see a tool to make some provisioning, mass provisioning of the greeting.
Patrick, we don't see web admin on your
Me too.
desktop.
Ah, not even now?
No.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
Oh, hold on. Ah, okay. You can see that screen, the web admin at the moment?
No.
Oh. Hold on. Do you see my documentation at the moment?
Only documentation, yes. Looks like it's frozen.
Looks like?
It's frozen.
Because I see page 27 still.
Yes.
I did,
27th slide. 27th slide, yes, with user preference 3.
27 slide, and now if I switch, nothing on?
No.
Nothing.
No? Okay. So there must be something frozen.
Maybe to restart presentation.
Yeah. I will restart it. Yes. Up. Get the sharing. Up. Is that better?
Yes. Now
okay.
I see. Vlad,
Okay.
do you see?
Yes, I see.
Okay, the link. I just click on the voicemail greeting management link. which will allow me to, for all the user of the system, to select the greeting I can, the wave I want to put and to upload as the greeting. And then once they will be seen as recorded, I can activate it. Okay. There's also, concerning the greeting, one mass provisioning script that is, hold on, mass provisioning script is documentation. I think it's the same document as retrieving voicemail. Hold on. So this documentation explains how to migrate voicemail from ICS6 to OpenTouch. And if I remember, yeah, there's also a paragraph for greeting in it. The greeting script, I think, let me open a session on my OpenTouch. Up. I think the script is the Python script inside inside voice application. No. OpenTouch. Voice application. Greetings upload. This is the user interface we just saw, if I'm correct. Yeah, classical Java server page and script. Where is it? Scripts? Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's the script, extract VM greeting, all this script there, which will allow us to make the migration of the greetings from ICS to OpenTouch. So more or less making a big zip, and then, as usual, launching that script to put back in place the greeting. Okay. Upload, so that's extract the greeting. Oh, sorry. I suppose this start with retrieving all the login of the user. It's the same operation since I suppose greeting in ICS are indexed by the user login. So I suppose that you need to have the same preconditions, like having the same login as you had in ICS. So there's a check on the version. Okay. So we'll put all the things in updating the database directly. Okay. And that's it. So a few scripts. Then, since the plugin is inside, this is in in the voice application, web application, but the user preference plugin is inside Chameleon. So if you go to web application, so you will find the binaries for user preference are there, and inside Chameleon, normally, where is it? Hold on. I should see, I can't remember if it's at that level, you should see also a greeting folder. Hold on, I'm going to record one greeting. If I take my tool, perhaps I have a problem on that platform. Hold on. Okay, open. That's another platform I have. That's my tool on one platform. If I take the greeting, I'm uploaded. Okay. So here I have one greeting. None of them are activated. I can, for example, save a wave. HTTP. You see there, I have received an event at REST API level, greeting recorded, and the name, the ID of the greeting. So the user interface has been updated accordingly. It is recorded. So now I can activate this greeting. Okay, and I receive an event saying that the greeting is activated. So what I want to show there is, if I go now on this server, I take another server because I think I have greeting problem on my first VM OT2, because I played with voicemail profile being simplified or basic instead of full feature, I think. If I go back to Chameleon folder, I have now a user preference folder inside Chameleon, and this one is saving, that's the mailbox ID. It is saving the last activated greeting of a user. Why? Just for performance reason, to avoid downloading the wave each time it is accessed. So we keep that in a cache. In the user preference plugin, we will see that there's a cache for the greeting, which keep just the last active greeting for each user. Is that okay?
Yes, it's okay.
Okay, so forget about my tool. So the script we have seen. What else? Before going to see the code and a few other things, the architecture of a greeting is a bit involving many components. It is involving the CMS, of course, because that's where the information is stored. It is involving the user preference. because it's the plugin in charge of that. The Chameleon, because it's proposing the API. And in fact, for mobile, for phones like IP Touch, where I show you the user interface for greeting, they have developed a small component called voicemail. I don't know the name precisely. I think it's common voicemail. I think the name is common voicemail. It's a jar that is like a front end for IP Touch to access Chameleon API. So IP Touch access common voicemail, then common voicemail access Chameleon API to get or to retrieve and to make any action on the greetings. Okay, so there's many layers, a bit too many layers certainly, but this is for historical reasons. If I go on that, okay, so this is the project. So this project is not changing, as you have seen. That's the last time we have worked on greeting. So this is a library that is inside the web app of the infra web app, and the IP Touch will access there. Okay, this component called common voicemail has been modified to add normally all greeting. Where's the greeting? Greeting, yeah. Add method active greetings. That's where we work on the subject. Okay. A few greetings. So this is an old project. So when we had the feature greeting for IP Touch, we just added some changes. We added the greeting feature in that plugin. Not me. It's Eric Pfeiffer who did that. So I wanted just to let you know that this project exists. So it's used by NOE application. So if you go on how an IP Touch is accessing the greeting, this is not in infra services. The IP Touch goes in infra web apps. I think it's the ECC NOE there. We'll have is that ECC NOE. We'll have the common. That's the common voicemail. Okay. So that will contain some helper class to make RMI connection to the Chameleon API using the very old interface. And if we switch to the Java project, okay. Inside the Java project, I open my Chameleon code. So inside the Chameleon code, the common voicemail, we make RMI link to services. That's XML messaging, I think. And this is the very old API, SOAP API, that IP Touch is using. Well, IP Touch and common voicemail. So as you can see, we added some greeting operation there. Activate greeting, that's all the greeting stuff. Get greeting, we perhaps will have the date where this has been added. No. Just greeting start. So 2013 if I'm correct. So many operation record a greeting from a new URL. Stop recording. Play greeting. So there are some PPR operation on greeting too that use exactly the same as play pause from voice messaging. It's exactly the same API. In fact, we are using the IMS to make the PPR operation. The ID of the message, when we play a greeting, the ID of the message to play is the name of the greeting. So you can reuse the same API in IMS to play a greeting as to play a voice message. The voice message has a voice message ID, and here we have a name, in fact. So that's where the IP touch comes when it is for accessing the greeting. So if we go to the greeting service, this is the user preference plugin directly. So we find a reference to your user plugin, and that's it. So we have an inner interface, and we'll find all the basic operations for greeting. So not many operation: activate, delete, get, many get all by name, get the duration of a greeting, the URL, and saving a greeting. Okay. Either from an external URL or directly a byte array if you want to save directly. Okay. That's the same API we will find at more or less the same API we will find at REST API level. That's inside the Chameleon. There's one folder called OpenS. OpenS, then you will have all the resources for version 1. And we should see one greeting resource. So we will find more or less the same operation as the one proposed by the user preference plugin. Activation, deletion, get, and save. So saving, as I said, from an URL or saving from a byte array. Okay. And that's the same way of retrieving the user preference plugin. Okay, now we switch to the user preference plugin itself. Maven project, of course, only two artifacts. One API artifact contains the API, of course, and the events. So that's the top level interface. That's the greeting management interface. Okay. And the new events I have added just 2 or 3 months ago. Okay. That's the greeting activated, deleted, and recorded. Okay. So not a difficult jar to produce. Okay. No test on it on API. I have no test. I don't think it was the case doing some tests on just interface and just enumeration. The core, I added in the core, as I did for some other components, I had some UML diagram. So if I open this,
Да.
That's my
Не, у меня все
that's
окей.
my preferred UML editor. So
Нет.
it explains more or less where the user preference is. So the user preference has not much link with other components, only two in fact. It access to CMS in fact through the Chameleon Cache API, which is transferred at the moment, I think it's this afternoon by Jean-Yves. So we access this API, and we just, since recently, we just push some events on the bus, on the event bus for the newly created events. And we also, of course, also listen to some changes being made on CMS side about voicemail of user and some parameter being changed. Okay, that's for the user preference high-level components. More detail up. A more detailed view is there. That's more or less what I had. So that's the classical things. One high-level interface here, one Chameleon plugin interface, and one service which is implementing both interface, which delegates the work to a service, and the service will create a management greeting in two cases, for a user having a mailbox and for a user having no mailbox. In the case of user having no mailbox, you can play one greeting, only one in fact, which is the name in fact of the user. So that all the other greeting are not supported, but the default phone number is supported for him. And there's one, of course, common operation in the greeting management abstract. So the UML diagram is quite a very common architecture diagram that you will retrieve in some other components. That's all for the design. If we go into the code, that's the thing we will retrieve. In the core must be, of course, we use Guides here, that from Google, to make the dependency injection. We talked about that last week. So we just make a module configuration that will make the bindings between our interface and implementation. For example, for GMX, for debugging, so we make the binding for the cache. Also, we have as I said, we store in a cache the last activated plugin greeting, and a few other implementations. So I add recently, as you can see here, I add recently also another binding to an event publisher without any specifying an interface. So because I needed to publish the newly created event. Okay. If we come back to the implementation will then make all the initialization. The service will then receive the injection of all the dependencies created, and it will also handle all the start of the plugin, where we start on another thread, and the starter handler deals with all the other stuff, instantiating GMX connection, subscription to the event bus, and so on. Okay. So that's quite classical for what we have to do. The greeting cache manager has to be deleted the first time it is started, of course. So we only store the greeting the first time it is accessed. What else do we have? We have event subscriber. That's all very common classes for dealing with the subscription to the event bus. So as you can see, we will handle all events coming from voicemail. That's it. So in case of update, we can make some cache update if needed. If we receive an event saying that the user has updated his greeting, so we can clean the cache just to make sure next time we will load the correct greeting. Okay. What else can we say on this? The journal is quite a classical component where we can log some useful things. We will find them in logs, journal. I'm sure you know it already. And then the core of the feature is there. So there's one greeting implementation, which is all the attributes a greeting has. So a greeting has a name, of course. A greeting can be activated or not, can be recorded or not, and can be recordable or not. So, for example, we say that it is not recordable if it is, in which case it's not recordable. If we don't have, let's have a look. That's the common greeting management implementation. We will build the list of all the greeting when we are requested to get all the list of greeting. As you can see, we're just building attributes depending on the name of the greeting, and we check that the vocal attribute exists in the CMS to say that a greeting is recorded or not. If we find that a wave has been stored inside the CMS for that greeting, we mark it as being recorded. Okay. When we get the greeting also concerning personal and internal, that's where we will need to do some work. Because as I said, it's not because we have to merge all these cases, in fact, personal and personal for internal. If personal is activated, in fact, here we will need to add also something like if vocal exists for personal for internal, we will need also to say that internal for internal is activated. So that's one of the changes that will need to be done, that is requested by Jan Grotet, something like that. Okay. So in fact, the goal is to say you cannot activate individually the personal for internal. It is a subset of the personal. So you activate at personal level and not at personal for internal level. So that's more or less one of the change that is requested. Well, not much more. Okay. When we activate, I said, so when we activate a greeting, so what are we doing? So we are, I'm preparing the event just in case. Listing, because we receive a list of greetings to activate. I'm just converting it. I'm checking if these greetings are recorded. That's where we will need to send something back saying that if we are requested to activate a greeting that is not recorded, we will send an error. So there must be here an exception to throw saying that not possible to activate. Perhaps I'm throwing it already. Yeah, I'm throwing it already. So perhaps it has been done. I will check it. Okay, for the moment. So it's not a difficult plugin. It's just, let's say, 10 important classes. This is one of the important classes. That's where all the logic is, in fact. Then if I found that I can send the event, I will send the event. So event activated. I will send the event on the bus. So what needs to be done there? As you can see, we access a user management request, which is a chameleon cache operation, just to say, hey, please activate this greeting, put that in the CMS. That's where we play because some greetings are greeting recorded, it's undefined. So we play more or less with two objects of the cache, chameleon cache, which is the user because some attributes are on the user for the greeting, and the other are on the greeting cache manager. Okay. Here, this must be also a bug or something to complete. Not a bug, but something to complete. Because I get the active, never return a list where it should. In fact, here we have something that should be done on personal. Something like if it's personal. Something saying that up if it's personal. Okay, and if greeting no, I have to check the list of activated. Well, there's something to do here, just to check. Check if personal for internal is recorded? If yes, return also personal for internal. Okay. So, as I said, so the name of the standard takes the value of standard voice name or phone number, depending where you are in the interface. It depends if you are Cache, Chameleon Cache API, if you are inside the plugin, or at REST API. So it's quite a bit of a mess concerning the name, but Product Line Manager was not very accurate on that point. That could explain why we had so many ways to define something. Okay. If you see the other implementation, user without mailbox, as you can see, the only greeting return is the voice name, and that's all, I think. We can get by name the voice name. We can save only the voice name, because I think it is stored inside the user and not in a voicemail object. Okay. Get URL only voice name, and so on and so on. So, okay. That's all for the code of the user preference. If I update the project. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Patrick, one question.
Yes.
If I understand you correctly, greeting management menu will be added to a TCP/C client, yeah, in the future?
Sorry, could you repeat?
Greeting management will be added as a component to OTCP/C client, yes?
Yes, yes.
In the future, yes?
Yes, in the forthcoming release, I don't know if it's OT14 or OT13 MD1, I don't know.
Okay. And greeting management is available for CT, for standard users only, or for CV2?
For CV2, yes, for
yes?
CV2, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I was so just running, so it's not taking long to run that project. As you can see, there's not many lines of code. It's quite a simple it's a simple project. The only things to work on, as I said, is the logic of the greeting. Okay, there's a few tests that are one error. It must be activated. So you see the modification I made has broken the test, which is good. That shows that the tests are lively. So the tests need to be adapted. The tests are quite a standard way to using the test ng as usual, creating a test module for injection, testing the service, and I think testing the API. There must be a few things. Okay, So should need to be complete, but at least they are working. Okay. Something like this. What else can I say on that? There's another project which is interesting too inside the user preference, which is integration test. And what I remember is that I haven't touched this, but what I remember is that this project, there are some classes, test classes that are focusing on IP touch test. That means they test greeting at old SOAP API, the one I showed you before. It tests Chameleon Core, services. So this is RMI link, okay, using the very old XML messaging API. And IP touch, as I said, is accessing greetings from this API. So this project, as far as I remember, this project is accessing user preference. Yeah, I made some simplification, some tests. So it connects to the API framework using the XML API, and it uses all the XML API, RMI API, to make some tests on greeting, record greeting, activate greeting, and so on. Okay. I can try to start it. I'm not sure about the configuration, because as usual, you need some configuration data. Yes, so perhaps I could try my other platform. A3. Company phone is 33. Okay. So I do not promise it will work, but at least it's worth trying. I see okay for the moment, so not so bad. So don't forget, I think you have seen our test, REST API test, done by Ludovic, perhaps. And there's a test suite dedicated to REST API greeting management, which should be okay. So it works. So and this one is focusing on the old API. Okay, so it seems that it worked. Okay. Could have launched it using testng inside Eclipse. Come on. No, it's not taking the good configuration file. I should start it by passing the correct properties. No, never mind, forget. So as I said, there's also a lot of tests inside our Jenkins on greetings. T13 tests. There's one greeting dedicated test suite with not many tests, but just get, record, and so on. It's not very nice. This test needs perhaps to be adapted because I'm using a test server, which is my test server, just to push some waves as new greeting record. Okay, so that's authentication, login, service, retrieving, and that's all the greeting related operation. So that's what I'm talking about. I was using my test server just to push some wave as recording. Okay, receiving some events like that's just a get. We should have some events. Perhaps the events are not tested yet. We should add it. Okay, and that's more or less all I can say about user preference. What else can I show you? What else do I have on user preference? Yeah. I show you the documentation, and that's, for me, it's okay for user preference. Do you have any question?
Right now, I don't have.
You don't have any question? Okay. I send you the email exchange. I will try to make a summary in English of the request. I will say to Jan and Frédéric Mabilot that you will perhaps take the lead, but I will be there to assist you just in case you need some help. The evolution is not, as you see, it's not huge requests. It's just a few cases of managing the greeting.
Okay.
So I can even commit some changes if you want. You will approve it or not.
Yes, I can approve it.
Okay, if you don't have any questions, that's okay for me.
Yes, and you will send us this presentation, yes, Patrick?
This presentation I sent already, all the sharing.
Okay.
It's inside the folder. I send the sharing. If we go to the documentation, I send the all sharing for that folder.
Yes.
So that means my presentation is there, just one level. I put also all my development environment, my Eclipse, and some preferences asked by Pavel. Some plugin I'm using, and some documentation from mostly Docman. Most of them coming from the previous transfer, but I added some extra documentation. Like I added things about IMAP. I added some NGVM description about how the voice messages are stored on the file system. Some troubleshooting guide also. Well, if you come back to logs, that reminds me. Logs, of course, since UserPref is inside Chameleon, you have a dedicated appender here with all the user preferences. Okay. Greeting management. It's mostly journal format, but there are also a few logs I have personally added because I'm not a big fan of the journal. So I added more classical logs. Okay. Don't forget that this plugin is used in two contexts: OpenTouch OTMS, but also in OTVM. So there's the voice messaging edition of OpenTouch, which is a light version of the OTMS, only with the messaging components. Of course, the user preference is part of this solution. What else can I say? Voice application, that's it. So if you haven't received the link for sharing that folder, tell me.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if no other question, wish you good evening.
Thank you,
Good evening.
Patrick.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.